welcome back to Caxton House Kitchen. This is week 3. Just to remind you, I'm Diane.
And I'm Kevin.
Hi Kev. Right, today I'm going to make a stir-fry sweet and sour vegetables with some tofu and some medium egg noodles. And what are you making?
And I'm going to make a nice classic apple and blueberry crumble using apples
amazing.
and blueberries and all those
fantastic.
good yummy things.
Okay, so today we're going to make a sweet and sour vegetable and tofu stir-fry. We've got leeks, we've got carrots, we've got green beans, and in a minute I'm going to ask Kevin to cut the leek up for me and also top and tail the green beans, which basically means just chopping off this end and then cutting them in half. We've got a green pepper and a red pepper. Here we've got some red peppers in oil. You get them in this package, or you can sometimes get them in jars. So if you've got either of those and you haven't got a fresh red pepper, that's okay to use that too. These ingredients here are going to make up our sweet and sour sauce, and then I'm going to add some tofu and finally some medium egg noodles. So Kevin, could I ask you please to do the leeks and the green beans for me?
Yeah,
thank you. Alright, so I'm going to just use this peeler and peel the outer skin of the carrot. And then once this is done, you can either just chop it up in rounds, in small rounds, but today I thought it might be fun if we use the peeler to make strips of carrots. So that's what we're going to do. Just get rid of all of this. This will give us we'll have different size chunks of vegetables and noodles and tofu. It will just add another layer, another texture. But obviously you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Okay, so I'm going to start off by making the sweet and sour sauce. So the main components for this are 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, that will give us the sour. 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce for flavour, and then 2 tablespoons of honey for sweetness. Now you can get dark and light soy sauce. Apparently dark soy is for colour and light soy is for flavour, but if you've only got dark, I'm not sure it would make too much difference. So let's get this going. To vinegar. 2 soy sauce. It smells amazing, by the way. Oh, and 2 of honey. And I've got a confession to make. I started off doing the carrots in ribbons, but it is such a faff that I ended up just chopping them really thinly. So yeah, you can do it either way. Trust me, it's a faff. There we go. So I'm going to put this to one side and I'm going to crack on with cooking the vegetables and the tofu. Right, I'm going to start off with the leek. If you haven't got leek, you can use onion. Onion will take a little bit longer to cook. I'm starting this off on a medium heat. And it looks like these are going to overflow, but they won't. They'll start to break down in a little while. Okay, so you can see here that the leeks have really reduced down, and they're starting to get a really nice bit of colour on them, and they're going a little bit translucent. What I did is I turned the heat up to high for a few minutes just to try and speed up the cooking time, and now I've reduced it back to medium again, and I'm going to add in all the rest of these lovely vegetables here. They can all go in at the same time. I'm going to keep it on a medium heat for now, and just keep an eye on it. But again, these are reduced down. I'm using a wok, but a large frying pan will work just as well if you don't have a wok. There we go. And as I said, don't worry, it looks like it's coming at the top of the pan again. They will reduce down nicely. Okay, whilst these are reducing down, I'm going to, because we've got quite a full pan here, I'm going to cook the tofu separately in a frying pan. Obviously, if you're using smaller amount of vegetables, you can put it all in together. But what I really want to achieve is just a little bit of colour and a tiny little bit of crispness on the tofu. But it is personal preference. Just going to let the oil warm up a little bit. And I've got this on a medium heat. I've got it on about 5 on this one. Okay. I'm not going to add it all at the same time. I'm going to add a little bit at a time first. I don't want to overload the pan. Sometimes I find if you put too much stuff in the pan at the same time, it almost starts to sort of boil as opposed to fry. So I prefer to do it in batches if I've got quite a lot to do. And get a bit of colour on it, which is just what I wanted. I'm going to wait until it's coloured on both sides, and then I'm going to transfer it into this pan. And once we've done that, we can begin boiling up the noodles to go with it. Alright, so these I've got to about where I want them now, so I'm going to pop them in there and start the next batch. And I'm also going to add this tin of tomatoes, and I'm going to add some of the pineapple juice and the pineapples. And once I've mixed all of that in, I'm then going to add our sweet and sour sauce, but I'm going to make a little bit for on the side for if we want to pour a little bit extra over the top, or if we want to dip any of the vegetable or the tofu in on the side. So let's get that done. As I said, I just find it easier to do it in smaller batches. You can keep an eye on them as well that way. And these have got quite a nice colour all over them, which have added just a tiny little bit of crisp. And again, it's always nice to have different textures. So that's that. I've still got enough oil in this pan for me to add the rest of the tofu in here to cook this batch off. Then in go the tomatoes. And if you need any extra liquid, you can always put some water in the can and add that, as we did with the tomato sauce. So, in go our pineapple chunks. I think I'm going to leave a few on the side actually, maybe to garnish it later. Stir all this through. And add some of this pineapple juice just for extra flavour. And just leave that to simmer. In the meantime, I'm now going to put some water on the hob to boil our medium egg noodles, and they take about 4 minutes each. And this is what they look like. And there are 3 different I don't know what we call them, layers of noodles, and each one of these is approximately a portion. Okay, so this is nearly done. The second batch of tofu is in with the rest of the stir fry. I've put in the sweet and sour sauce and I've tasted it, and I think it's okay to go, but we can always check it again at the end. So here I've got a big pan full of boiling water, and being as we've got such a lot of veg and tofu, I'm going to do enough noodles for 3 people. As I said, each one of these will serve about 1 person each. So in they go. And I'm going to take these out in 4 minutes time and serve them straight away. Okay, so the noodles have had their 4 minutes, so I'm just going to turn the heat off on them and serve them up onto this plate. It's probably easier if you use tongs, because they're slippery little things otherwise, as you can see. It doesn't matter if you get a little bit of the water in there. So I'm going to just put some noodles in here. I'm not going to go overboard. Oh, yes I am. No, I'm not. There we go. And then add some of this lovely sweet and sour veg and tofu. Are you hungry, Kevin?
I am. Lovely.
There you have it.
Okay, so today we're going to make that all-time favourite classic dessert, apple and blueberry crumble. The great thing about crumble is you can use basically any fruit that's seasonal. So you could make a rhubarb crumble, you could make a pear crumble, you could use peaches, gooseberries are really nice, and blackberries are really great as well. You can use them on their own or you can combine them. So you could do an apple and blackberry crumble, you could do a gooseberry crumble mixed in with your blueberries, so you can kind of mix all the fruits up as well. The key ingredients we're going to be using today are plain flour, we're going to use some caster sugar, and we're going to use some cold butter that's been cubed from the refrigerator. Also for the topping, we're going to use some porridge oats or rolled oats as well that can be mixed in with those ingredients that give a really nice nutty taste. To also flake on top of the crumble, some nice flaked almonds, and then for a real luxury feel, and this is optional, you can use some flaked almonds and you can use some ground almonds too. For the fruit part of the crumble, we're going to use some blueberries that are frozen, and we're going to use some apples, and these can be green or red apples or baking apples. And what's nice with the apples as well is if you put a little bit of cinnamon in there too, which really gives that kind of like lovely sort of like festive sort of like flavour and wintry flavour. Also a little bit of lemon juice as well, which is nice combined with these ingredients, which gives a little sharpness as well to the crumble, because it's a very, very sweet dish when the sugar's added in there. So we're going to start off with the apples, and I'm going to show you how to prepare the apples ready for the crumble. Right, so now we're going to start peeling and preparing our apples for our crumble. First thing is to peel your apple with a peeler, and then you can chop the apple in half, like so. And then you need to take the core out of the apple. So if you cut it into half again, these aren't too bad actually, and then just slice down with your knife and take the core out like that. So do that with all the 4 pieces of apple. Chop it in half again. There's a million ways of doing this, but this is kind of, I don't know, this is kind of my easier way of doing it. So you've got all your cores out of the way. And then your apples, you can keep them quite chunky or you can just chop them in half. I mean, they're nicer, they're a little bit chunky and irregular. They add a bit of texture to the crumble. A little tip when you core the apples and you peel them is to put them in cold water while you're preparing the other apples, so that the apple doesn't go brown, and then it's ready to go into the pan. I'll show you the next step there. So now we've cored the apples, we can now start to just kind of like soften them before we put them into the crumble. They're going to bake in the oven for a little while, so they don't need to be absolutely cooked, but just to take the edge off the rawness. So get your apples out of the cold water, and you can just pop them into a pan. Scoop them all out. I'm going to put some of the caster sugar in. I'm going to leave a bit of the caster sugar to go on the top of the crumble to give it a nice crusty, sugary feel, but maybe just leave, you probably need about sort of like a tablespoon left, so you know, that kind of amount, but it doesn't matter, it's quite laid back and casual. I'm going to add a little bit of water. I've got about 100 millilitres of water here, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water. You don't need an awful lot because the apples do give off a lot of juice as well. And then I'm going to add the cinnamon, which is around about a teaspoonful of cinnamon. So that's now going to go onto the hob and just slowly cook through till those apples soften a little bit. Okay, so the next step is to make the crumble topping. So get a sieve, get your plain flour and sieve over your bowl. You can do that by just tapping the bowl with the sieve and just getting all that flour through. Like that. Push it through. My apples are bubbling away there, so let's give them a quick stir. It's nice, they smell delicious. So your flour's in, then your butter, and it's best to cube your butter, put it back into the fridge, and then you can use it cold into your crumble because that's what you want to have. So pop that into your bowl with your flour, and then you can start to kind of combine those two. And all I'm doing is just kind of like fluffing it with the ends of my fingers. And what I want to try and achieve is to get some kind of like crumbs or kind of like crumbly sort of like texture in there with the butter and the flour. So you just, this takes a little bit of time. Start getting the crumbs together. Just kind of like flaking it with the ends of my fingers. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I mean, if you've got lumps in it, it adds to the crunch of the crumble. It needs to be kind of like nice and sort of textured. There's no rush in this process or this technique. This is when I sing a little song and sort of do my, tell a little joke maybe. Okay, so that's starting to come together now. So, crumbs, it's quite messy, but you can kind of like flake all the sort of like butter off your fingers. And then you can add the oats in there as well. And you can mix those in with the crumbs. So just kind of again flake it with the ends of your fingers so you kind of get this lovely sort of like crunchy base. Keep on going. And again, if you've got lumps of butter, it doesn't matter because it's all going to melt when it goes into the oven. There we go. And then if you want for added luxury, you can add a little bit of your ground almonds into the mixture. And you can just flake all that together and combine it. And there we go. So that's roughly the kind of look you want to achieve. So, now that the apples are all stewed and lovely and cooked, we can see their kind of consistency. So they're soft and they're lovely and kind of like caramelized with the cinnamon. We can then start putting the crumble together. So first and foremost, give your dish a good buttering, and you can get a bit of tin foil or a bit of parchment paper or a bit of the butter wrapper, and then just grease up your flat casserole dish, baking dish. Make sure it's completely covered. This will help the crumble not to kind of like stick, and it makes it easier to wash up at the end once you've eaten your crumble. To one side. It's also a good point now to taste the apples as well. So sometimes they can be a little bit sweet, so they're not too bad. If you want to though, if it's very sweet, you can add a little bit of lemon juice at this point. So just a kind of like teaspoon, I would say, of lemon juice. Add that to the apples. Mix it in, and then take your pan, and you can try and do it so you can see, and just spoon out your apples into your buttered baking dish. Go down there. Then today we're going to add some blueberries, and these are frozen blueberries, and we're just going to sprinkle those on top of the apples. And then just roughly kind of like mix them up together. And then your crumble that you've already prepared, you can spoon that over your fruit. So cover all that fruit up, putting a blanket of crumble over your fruit. And then at this point, this is optional, but it's nice, you can add some flaked almonds on top of your crumble. So just evenly put those across. And they add like a nice nutty sort of like taste to the crumble, and they add lovely texture too. And then the remainder of your caster sugar, which we used in the apples, we can now sprinkle that over the top. And this will give a lovely kind of like crusty sweet layer to the topping. So the crumble's ready to go into the oven. We're going to heat the oven at 180 degrees if it's a fan oven, or 190 degrees Celsius if it's just a normal regular oven, or gas mark 4. So don't forget your oven gloves. So pick up your crumble, go over to your oven, and you can put your crumble in. That's going to be in there for around about 25 to 30 minutes. So keep your eye on it, and once it starts bubbling and then the top's gone nice and brown, you can take it out of the oven. Okay, so the crumble's been in now for about 25 to 30 minutes. So it's time to get it out of the oven. And it's a pity we don't have smell-o-vision because it absolutely smells delicious. So just getting it out. And as you can see, it's lovely and toasty, and the nuts have kind of like roasted and toasted, so it's very nice. It smells delicious. The great thing about crumble, you can have it with a variety of different accompaniments as well. You can have custard with it, ice cream's really nice, or just single cream, or even sort of like double cream, or whipped cream's really good with it. Storing it, you can freeze crumble. Basically, when you've had your portions, you can let it cool, and then you can put it into a Tupperware container and you can freeze it. Don't forget to mark on when you put it in the freezer, and it probably lasts for around about 2 to 3 months in there. To warm it up, I'd just put it back into the oven in an ovenware dish and just warm it through, or you could microwave it. If you make a large one like we've made today, you don't have to eat it all at once. Once it's chilled, you can put it into your refrigerator, and it probably lasts around about 3 to 4 days in there. But if anything historically to go by, it tends to get all eaten plenty straight away.
What do you think?
Very nice.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. Nice with a bit of soy sauce as well.
Oh yeah, there's extra sweet and sour sauce there, and there's extra pineapple there if you fancy it.
Yep. Lovely.
Lovely.
Gorgeous. You want to try a bit of my crumble?
Yeah. Smells amazing.
It's
really,
a good
really
one.
Nice.